Happy New Year! If you're like most people, this video is probably landing right about the time you're starting to give up on your New Year's resolutions. But also, if you're like most people, that may simply be a result of not setting goals the right way. Let's kick off the new year, and celebrate me making videos again, by talking about how to set goals correctly and avoid setting yourself up for failure before you even start. And yes, this is still a privacy channel. I promise this will be privacy related by the end. New Year's resolutions are kind of a joke. Everyone knows that nobody keeps them.
Everyone knows that no one ever keeps their New Year's resolution. Did you know about this?
These days, a lot of people have largely given up. According to Pew Research, only 30% of Americans set a New Year's resolution in 2024. Of those who did, 80% felt confident that they could stick with it when they set their goals. Despite this, only 9% of Americans keep their resolutions. Nearly a quarter quit by the second week of January, while almost half give up by the end of the month. So the whole thing is silly, right? If less than 1/3 of people are even setting goals, and then less than 10% of those people are achieving them, it's gotta be pointless. Not really. Economist and professor Katie Milkman studies the intersection between economics and psychology. In 2014, she published a paper about what she called the fresh start effect, in which she noticed that people were far more likely to achieve their goals if these goals were tied to a specific date that was special to them. For example, maybe you say that you want to learn a new language by your 40th birthday, or you want to run a marathon on the anniversary of your mom's passing. But that effect also extends to non-unique dates, like the new year, a new month, even a new week. Granted, the effect is much smaller on those kind of dates, but they're still there. For those who want to learn more, she would later go on to write a book called How to Change, where she really gets into the details. So if New Year's resolutions are actually sound in theory, why do so few people stick with them? People are complicated. There's lots of reasons people may not stick with their goals. Any goal, not just New Year's resolutions. For example, goals that are intrinsic, meaning internally driven, are more likely to be achieved than goals that are extrinsic or externally driven. So, for example, getting in shape because you want to be able to run around with your kids in the yard is an intrinsic goal. Getting in shape because your doctor says to is extrinsic. Another challenge, one that I will admit I struggle with, is all or nothing thinking. A common example is, say you're on a diet, and out of habit you reach for a soda instead of a water, and then once you realize your mistake, instead of just saying, oops, I gotta remember to grab a water next time, you say, well, today's shot, so I guess I'll just splurge and start over tomorrow. But a major reason people don't meet their goals is simply because a lot of us were never taught how to set goals properly. Setting goals the wrong way is basically sabotaging yourself at the starting line. There's several different systems of setting achievable goals, but one of the most common is called SMART goals. As you may expect, this is an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Specific means that your goal should be, well, specific. I want to be healthier is not a specific goal, but I want to cut out junk food is much better. You could probably get even more detailed by naming the specific junk foods that you have too often. Measurable is also fairly self-explanatory. Your goal should come with ways to measure your progress as objectively as possible. Things like going to the gym 3 times a week, running a certain distance, or lifting a certain weight are all measurable goals. Now, achievable is twofold. There's the side of it where achievable means possible. You can't, for example, learn how to run faster than the speed of light. But the other side of achievable is under your control. A common thing I see with content creators, for example, is they say that I want to get 1,000 subscribers this year. Well, that's definitely possible, but you really don't have any control over whether or not other people click the subscribe button. So instead, a more achievable goal would be, I'm going to upload a video every month. That's something you can do, regardless of how many people subscribe. Relevant means that your goal should be getting you closer to your broader goals. Later, I'll talk about the idea of breaking your goals down into achievable bites, but for example, if your long-term goal is to say, get a job in cybersecurity, then getting one of your CompTIA certifications could be part of a long-term goal. And finally, time-bound means that you should set realistic timelines on when you're going to achieve your goal. You've probably noticed in the past that if you have 2 weeks to do something, it takes 2 weeks. But if you have to crunch and rush that same thing out in 3 days, somehow you manage to make it work. This is called Parkinson's Law, and it basically says that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. If we don't set a timeline or give ourselves too much time, it can often have the effect of working against us, slowing us down or making us just kind of fizzle out entirely. Setting realistic deadlines can help motivate you and keep you on track. Just be sure not to go too far in the other direction and set deadlines that are unrealistically short. Okay, let's set a privacy-related goal and see how this plays out in action. I told you this was still a privacy channel. Let's say your goal this year is to finally install Graphene OS on your Google Pixel phone in the next 30 days. Is it specific? Yes. You've picked the OS, and well, with Graphene, you only have one choice of hardware, but you get my point. If you picked another OS like Lineage or Calyx, you'll have more choices, so you'll have to pick the device as well. Get specific. Is it measurable? Well, in this case, either it's installed or it's not, so yeah, you'll know when you're there. Is it achievable? This one depends on your location and your income, but let's assume for the sake of this example, you have the means to get a Pixel. So yes, it is achievable in both senses. It is possible, and it is something that you have agency over. Is it relevant? Well, if your long-term goal is to level up your privacy, then yes, switching to graphene is a great next step in that long-term journey. And last but not least, is it time-bound? Yes, every de-Googled Android I know of takes less than an hour to install, so 30 days is plenty of time to back up your data, research the process, clear out an afternoon, maybe even make a few small mistakes, and then once it's installed, you reinstall your apps and transfer your data back. This is an absolutely reasonable timeline for most people. And bam, just like that, you've met your goal. If this is your first time hearing about SMART goals, go ahead and drop your first SMART goal in the comments and let me know how it fits each criteria. So now that you figured out how to make realistic, achievable goals, there's a few more tips we can use to put them into action. Number one, start small. In addition to not setting goals properly, another major reason people often fail to meet their goals is that they simply try to do too much at once. Rather than deciding that you're going to implement every single privacy tool in a week, pick one to start with, like switching browsers or adopting password managers, and then when you've mastered that part, pick another one and keep repeating. Number two, break big goals down into smaller ones. There's a saying that I love. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It means that even big, complex, hard goals can be achieved if you take it piece by piece. I mentioned in the phone example that this could be part of a longer-term strategy to improve your overall privacy posture. You could break down a big goal, such as to completely de-Google, into a series of smaller steps, like switching email providers, search engines, calendar, cloud storage, maps, and finally, phone operating system. Number three, be sure to review your progress regularly. See what's working and what's not. Don't be afraid to readjust if you're hitting roadblocks you can't overcome. Maybe you can't purchase a Pixel in your area, so you'll have to consider a different operating system like Calyx. And number four, be sure to reward yourself for progress.
Preach yourself.
Sometimes the progress is its own reward. I think it feels real good to have a fresh Linux distro to set up, for example. But sometimes you may feel the need to give yourself a small treat for making progress. That's fine. Just make sure you're feeling like the struggle was worth it to keep you motivated. If you want more advice on how to reach your goals, many people, myself included, have found a lot of value out of James Clear's classic book, Atomic Habits. Now that you have the tools you need to get out there and start making your goals a reality, privacy or otherwise, it's time to become one of the elite 3% who reaches your goals. If you're ready to start setting goals to improve your privacy and cybersecurity this year, you can find all my latest recommendations and tips at thenewoil.org. Also, remember that tech changes fast, so if you're watching this video in the future, be sure to get the latest information there, and you can also find ways to support this channel and keep us going. Every little bit helps. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
You did! You knew about this and you still punched and kicked and pinched me!